Welcome to World Crisis Radio, our second hour, and without further ado, we're going to go to Athens, Greece, and get the lowdown now. We're going to be talking to Michael Chiotinis. Before he begins, I've got to congratulate him. Thanks to Michael Chiotinis, the listeners to this program knew in advance that Tsipras and Syriza would not listen to the siren song of Stavros Theodorakis and the River Party, right? The Topatomi Party. No. They would go directly to the Anel, the independent Greeks of Kamenos. And so it has been. So that's obviously it shows that Michael Chiotinis knows what's going on. I know he wants to talk to us about one of the next formal steps, which is who's going to be the president of the republic, because remember, that's how this entire thing started. But right now, we got to go to the thick of things. Michael is right there at the battlefront. What does it look like? What are the main dangers? What are the main opportunities?
Hello, Webster. Well, as excited as I am about the change that has come to Greece, and as tempting as it is to begin and analyze every ministerial assignment and all hope and goodwill that has returned to the Greek people, and you can see this on the streets. Well, we have to talk about real issues here, and I have to warn about certain things. Thank you very much for giving me credit for the correct predictions. And I was actually talking about the need for the independent Greeks to get inside parliament and form a government with Syriza. And I knew what I was saying about this, because what I'm really afraid of is a civil war type polemic from the opposition and a subversion of the government on civil war lines. And that's, I think, a very big danger. Right now, the previous establishment, the local kleptocracy that was always aligned with the Euro clergy, this invisible priesthood of the Euro oligarchy that makes the decisions, and we never know who makes the decisions. But, the Euro oligarchy, this establishment in Greece that supported this Euro oligarchy is dying. And it seems that it's not ready to go quite so easily. I'm afraid I have to bore you with some details concerning New Democracy now, the Conservative Party. That is the main political formation representing this old system. Now, before the current leader, Mr. Samaras, there was Kostas Karamanlis, Prime Minister, up until he lost the election to Papandreou's government. Papandreou's government was the one who brought us a troika. And
just if I could, there are actually two generations of Karamanlis that I'm aware of, right? There was the older Karamanlis, and now there's a newer one, and that's who you're talking about, is the son or whatever, the heir.
It's 3 generations of Papandreou's, but anyway.
Right.
Papandreou won the election from Karamanlis and brought us this despicable bailout. Now, Karamanlis, the former leader of the Conservatives, always maintained the image of a centrist moderate. He wasn't a true right-winger. Policies were mildly Keynesian, and he always thought the economic model, which at the time seemed from a conservative point of view, stupid conservative point of view, a viable model, which we now know that it's not.
Michael, I wonder, we're having trouble hearing you. You're breaking up. Is there anything you could adjust that might strengthen the signal?
I will try. Do you hear me now?
Sounds better now.
Okay. Now, his policies, Karamanlis' policies, were mildly Keynesian, as I said, and he tried to follow the Irish economic model, which at the time seemed, from a conservative point of view, as viable. We now know that it's not. Now, Samaras, who succeeded Karamanlis at the leadership of New Democracy, the prime minister up until a week ago, he took a hard right turn, taking in MPs from a far-right political party, not Golden Dawn, but another political party, something somewhere between Golden Dawn and the Conservatives. Now, the people surrounding Samaras, his very close team, were extreme right-wingers. And he gave key government positions to these characters. Now, these characters have become now the main spokesman for the Conservatives. But the essence, I don't want to go into much detail, but the essence here is that these people that also come from the era of the military dictatorship in Greece are, in my view, dreaming and in fact working on a scenario according to which Syriza fails in the negotiations with the EU, doesn't come to an agreement, causes a Grexit or chaos. Actually, they are preparing chaos. Chaos is being, the government speaks subverted to create chaos. And then the government collapses and the left is out of power for another 100 years or 200 years. What I was saying before the election is that we need a strong, culturally anti-austerity on the one hand, but on the other hand, culturally right-wing party to absorb these the cultural right wing of the Greek electorate, and we need a party on these lines with significant presence, And I always hoped that the independent Greeks would play this role, and because times are very rough, and create this new right wing of Greece. Now, how can this be done? How can that be done right now? In my view, New Democracy, the Conservatives, have to break up. And the only one who can break them up is Karamanlis, the previous leader, in which people have faith. People still have faith in him because he bears a historical name, because he was very loved when he was prime minister. For all sorts of reasons, right-wingers look up to Karamanlis. And I think his decision on whether he will accept the offer to become the president of the Republic, or if he tries and play a more active political role in the political system inside Parliament, his decision on what he will do will be a key in the forming or not of this big right-wing party that is needed to avoid a civil war. That's my concern, and that's my alert that I have to put out. Now,
Michael, let me just say, the
yes.
scenario you're talking about is, I think, quite realistic. Certainly the CIA and the U.S. intelligence community would be delighted to see a collapse of Syriza, a provoked exit of Greece from the euro. That would cause terrible damage to the euro. The dollar and the pound would benefit. The CIA would love that. And then the 200 years of reactionary or fascist rule. That's eminently reasonable from the point of view of the U.S. intelligence people.
We also have to point out here that Karamanlis was the only prime minister of Greece ever to have said no to NATO, to have vetoed NATO decisions, and he was big on Russian diplomacy, Putin diplomacy actually. He was very close with them, and we are aware of a possible assassination attempt by the CIA.
Against Karamanlis. Very interesting. Hang on, we're going to be right back with Michael Chiotinis from Athens and the lowdown on what's actually going on, the fight for Syriza to win through to prosperity and recovery. Back in a minute. Back to World Crisis Radio. We're getting a fascinating briefing and alarming from Michael Chiotinis in Athens. On the one hand, it would be highly advantageous for the conservative politician Karamanlis to become president of the republic for reasons of stability, but those NATO thugs from the colonel's dictatorship, as we mentioned before, 67 to 74, seem to have other ideas, and they may go violent at any time. So please pick it up where you left off.
Yes, they may become, I don't know in what way they might become violent, but they're certainly dreaming. There's a guy named Voridis, who was telling before the election that we will not allow for the left to govern Greece ever, by any means, by all means. We will avoid a left government, and now we have a left government. He was actually the leader of the youth of the dictatorship at that point, and he is now an MP for the Conservatives, unfortunately. Now, we had today a very, very serious meeting between the Eurogroup leader, the president of the Eurogroup, Mr. Dijsselbloem, and the Greek finance minister, Varoufakis. He was actually the one who addressed the UFAA conference, if you remember.
Right. I've told our listeners the story already in the program, but yes, you're right.
Yes, he's the finance minister now for Greece. He is, in my view, the most qualified for the job, and I'm excited to have him as a finance minister. And we had today the first episode of negotiations between Varoufakis and Dijsselbloem. He was actually here in Greece. They gave an interview, joint interview, press interview, and he talked about he actually tries to be very to appear that Greece wants to cooperate. Greece wants to cooperate with the European Commission, with the IMF, with every institution, but it has to be institutions, and negotiations have to take place on a political level, not in the technocratic level, which was the rhetorical tactic of the Conservatives, that we talk with the technocrats, and the technocrats, of course, when you talk only with technocrats apply the method that has been given to them, the memorandum, the IMF, the Washington Consensus, actually. And Varoufakis brought something new. He said, we will talk politically, but we refuse to cooperate with technocrats that only want to apply a certain logic that in our view is anti-European. And he's absolutely right on this. And at that moment, Dijsselbloem stood and walked out of the room. And it has become a whole panic that negotiations have ended, and there's a clash between Greece and the EU. This is not the case. Everyone expects to see the kind of things in a negotiation, and we are very optimistic about the ongoing negotiation. But say that they don't come to an agreement, and I think they will, because if they wanted Greece out of the Eurozone, Greece would be out of the Eurozone, right 3 or 4 years ago, in my view.
Right.
I think the Eurozone, Greece still is in the Eurozone, because the Eurozone is not viable without Greece. If a country exits the Eurozone has no future. Let's be honest on this. And I read an article Krugman wrote on the New York Times, I think, that he says, you think that Greece can go out of the Eurozone and the Eurozone be left standing? Well, you want to make a bet on it? It can't be done. It will.
Of course not.
Yes.
Let me just, in terms of this threat that you're pointing out, right? Russia Today just had a German academic on there. I'm looking him up. Who is he? Right, Marcus Kerber, Kerber. He says the Syriza government is not a government; it's a gang. It's a coalition of unreason and conspiracy. And despite the great generosity of the Eurozone, Greece has made no effort to reform. There's no reform. There's only blackmail. This is a cancer that must be stopped. Now, when you hear violent language like that, you might say reactionary circles, and NATO and so forth may indeed be preparing something ugly.
And that's the big danger right now. But the Syriza government has done the correct thing of not creating a climate of clash. They are creating a climate of cooperation. We want to cooperate, we want to negotiate, but we want to make it a deal that is viable for Greece as well as for Europe. We cannot be part of a postponement of the future, because that's what they're doing. That's what the Germans are doing. That's what the Euro oligarchy is doing. They're just postponing to deal with the issue, and the issue is the architecture of the Eurozone, the deflation going on right now in the Eurozone. The Eurozone is on a downward spiral as an economy, as an economy of 19 countries right now. So,
let me just ask you, Michael, Tsipras is going to France and Italy this coming week. And we also noticed that the first foreign representative that he called in was the Russian ambassador. I have been putting out this idea that Russia, Putin, having lost a lot of money in Ukraine on a dubious Yanukovych, Russia should come forward with something like a $5 billion support loan and maybe hold another $5 billion in readiness for later on. But something like this, that Russia, if they want to help, they need to think about.
But Russia could be ready to help in a case of emergency.
Okay. I'm afraid our time is gone. Michael, we hope to have you back next week and indeed for quite a while. So I hope you carve out sometime Friday evening for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.